The Dharma, incomparably profound and exquisite, is rarely met with even in hundreds of thousands of millions of kalpas. We now can see it, hear it, accept and hold it. May we realize the true mind of the Tathagata. Today is the fourth day of this 7-day sesshin, the second in succession in our double whammy training period here at Mountain Gate. And I'd like to share with you some more of the very short little, they're actually koans in the Denko Roku, but in this case, they're sort of a new interpretation by Lex Hickson, who was a Renaissance man in terms of religion. And I talked a bit more about his history in the previous Teisho. So I won't go into that at this point, but I'd like to share two of these with you and just comment, not treating them as a koan, but comment on them. This again is from this book, Living Buddha, Living Zen. And I don't know if it's still in print. Lex is long since died. It's early comments. It was published in 1995. So again, I'm not sure it's still available, but if you can get hold of it, it's got some valuable things to ponder. The Denko Roku is record the teachings, the teishos really, of Keizan Jokin, who was the successor to Dogen in Japan. He's considered the second successor, and that Dogen is the original major ancestor in terms of bringing Soto Zen from China to Japan. And Keizan is considered also highly, unusually highly esteemed second ancestor of Soto Zen in Japan. And he is the founder of Sojiji Temple. Eiheiji is the main headquarters temple of the Soto sect in Japan, and that was founded by Dogen Eihei, Dogen Kigen, and the Sojiji, which is also a headquarters temple of the Soto sect in Japan, was founded by Keizan Jokin. So the first one I'd like to share with you is titled "Ocean is Merging with Ocean," a transmission between Vasubandhu to Manorita. These are Indian masters, 22nd generation after the Buddha, before it had gotten out of India. And while India was still a major center of Buddhist practice in the world. Destined successor passionately asks present Buddha, what exactly is the awakeness of the awakened ones? The enlightened response is immediate. This awakenedness is simply the essential nature of daily awareness. Now that sounds awful simple and basic, and it is. Another question arises spontaneously. What is the essential nature of awareness? The second response is swift and clear as the first. It is the absence of any separation between sense organs, sense object, and sense consciousness. In the midst of ordinary experience, the new living Buddha is suddenly and completely awake. Let's go through this again. Destined successor passionately asks present Buddha, what exactly is the awakeness of the awakened ones? The enlightened response is immediate. This awakeness is simply the essential nature of daily awareness. Another question arises spontaneously. What is the essential nature of awareness? The second response is swift and clear as the first. It is the absence of any separation between sense organ, sense object, and sense consciousness. In the midst of ordinary experience, the new living Buddha is suddenly and completely awake. It is the absence of separation between sense organ, sense object, and sense consciousness. That, of course, is what we are opening to as we do our zazen. But what is it? The eye sees. The eye is the organ. It sees a bird. The bird is the object of sight. And then that is registered in the brain as the conscious awareness of the eye seeing the bird. But normally what happens for people is, okay, the eye sees the bird. It doesn't just see the bird. It sees the bird and immediately, what kind of bird is that? That's kind of odd for that kind of bird to be here. It's out of season. What do you mean? Or, oh, that's a magpie. They're raucous. They're not very pleasant birds. Or immediately would launch into commentary, judgment, and it immediately covers over the original experience. The original experience was pure and clear. Nothing attached, simple awareness. The more we can experience simple awareness, simply being present, so profoundly present that there's no inner commentary. There's no judgment about the situation. And we can say, oh, well, but if I can't judge the situation, how do I know if I'm safe or not? There's a deep inner knowing that understands that innately. We don't have to think it. We don't have to see that truck rushing towards us on the highway and think, I better get out of here quick or I'm going to get run down, and it's not going to feel good. Our body, in fact, our brain is set up in such a way that the response to the threat of danger is immediate before it even is registered in our prefrontal cortex, where we think, oh my God, this is about to happen. Because if you're about to step into the street and that truck is rushing towards you, if you were taking time to think, let me think now, it's going to take how many seconds for me to step off the curb and how many more seconds will it be till I get to where that truck, which is going X miles per hour, is going to encounter me if I step off the curb right now, you're going to be dead. So your brain keeps you safe. Your body keeps you safe from these kinds of things. An immediate threat of danger, boom, you're out of there. Unfortunately, trauma happens when, for whatever reason, you're unable to be out of there. You're held down and raped, or you're a child and you're beaten, or somebody's got a gun to the head of your wife, which has happened to one of my students. Then you can't just up and take off. And so trauma happens when you're helpless in a situation to do anything to get out of it. But let's get back to pure awareness, because if we can live in that pure awareness, it is an amazing journey. Sure, we experience sadness, happiness, joy, and so on, but we're not caught by it. And that's an enormous difference. we can feel empathetically the joy of another person. We can feel empathetically the pain or suffering of another person. We respond to both of those situations without having to think about them. When we sit back and judge ourselves because a feeling comes in and we assume it's our own feeling because there really aren't any walls between us. We understand when Boo, the dog, is feeling like he needs attention, feeling lonely, wanting somebody to care for him. That's clear. We feel when human beings feel the same thing and want to have some level of attention. So what's important is to let go of our stuff so that we can truly experience the moment with pure awareness. And when we do that, we respond naturally and appropriately without having to think about it, without having to judge it. It's not just ordinary paying attention, although ordinary paying attention is very vital. And the extended out breath, the Susokan practice that we teach here, is a fast track to becoming increasingly purely aware. And in fact, when we extend the breath over time and we get to the place where we can be fully present pretty much all the time, most of the time, let's say, and that there is this sense of almost joy, really, a sense of purity, a sense of awareness that is experienced as a very positive experience. At a certain point, we reach a threshold to letting go of any ideas about who we are. And if we accept that threshold and work at becoming present with that tweak at the end of the breath and open to the anxiety that is normally there, because when people let go everything, anxiety usually comes up initially until we recognize that letting go everything allows us to become everything, not to be limited by our ideas, our concepts, our assumptions. And this is what is being referred to as the awakeness. It's not yet awakening because it has to go much deeper than that, but it's definitely on the way. And it's important to recognize that this is what you're working towards in your practice, this aspect of letting go. Because only when we truly let go can we flow with ease through life, responding rather than reacting. Now I'd like to share another one. This is entitled, Allow the Entire Mindscape to Become a Smooth Wall. This is the transmission of Bodhidharma to Huiko, the second patriarch of China. After remaining at the right hand of the awakened one for years, actually it's a specific number of years. Let's see what it says. For 8 years, destined successor proclaims to his great master, I have finally put an end to conditions. Living Buddha sternly dismisses this attitude. Such a state would be equivalent to death. And this is another thing to be aware of in our practice. The admonition for years if we have been training in Japanese Zen, is to cut all thoughts, cut your thoughts. Just this mu, whatever. Cutting thoughts really means letting go of thoughts, not pushing them out, not denying them, but simply not involving ourselves with them. And it's very, very different from what we assume cutting would mean. And when we get into cutting our thoughts, we end up in a place of first of all, a dead end, and second of all, in danger of becoming like a dead log. There is an old teaching story about a monk who was given a place, a little hermitage to live on some property owned by an elderly woman who was quite awakened. And after 10 years, she decided to test, the depth of his zazen, whether he's really, really doing zazen or not. So she sent her 16-year-old granddaughter out to smell sweetly at him and ask him how he's feeling, how he's doing. And so the girl goes out and asks the monk how he's feeling, and he says, like a dead tree in winter. So she goes back and reports to her grandmother, who orders the hut burnt down and the man driven out. Why? Zazen is about coming alive, not about dying. Yes, dying to who you think you are, dying to all the assumptions about yourself, your life, and so on and so forth. Yes, things happened when you were growing up and even as you got older, but they are not who you are. You can spend the rest of your life kind of mulling them over, reacting to them, or you can move on. And through Zazen, you can move on into the innate freedom that is born within you. Zen practice is about becoming fully alive, fully present in each moment, fully aware in each moment. The Buddhas of the past were not stuck in a dead sitting. They were profoundly awake and aware in each moment. The difference is they weren't getting caught by things that were happening in those moments. The Buddha himself was threatened with death many times. And there's a print of a painting in my room called The Buddha Subdues the Elephant, the Wild Elephant. One of his students, who was quite jealous of him and wanted to become the leader of the group, managed 3 times to try to kill him unsuccessfully. And one of those times was to turn a mad elephant on in the direction where the Buddha was sitting zazen. Elephants are known in Southeast Asia, working elephants in particularly, which I think really reflects all elephants, except many of them that are in zoos don't have the opportunity necessarily to have this happen to them. But it's when they get in rut, like the infamous moose in Canada does, then they're known to get violent. In fact, even kill their owners, the people that have taken care of them for 20, 25 years, to suddenly get enraged. And so this is what was the case with this particular elephant, and it was somehow steered toward the Buddha. And the Buddha, simply with his presence, was able to subdue it. And the story is that the elephant knelt down before him. When we were living in Thailand, we were invited to a special show of elephants when the Chancellor of Germany came to visit the King of Thailand. And the King and Queen of Thailand had a summer home up in Chiang Mai. And we were living in Chiang Mai at the time. And so we were, as diplomats, invited to partake of the situation, with our kids too. And I think I'll have to ask Randy when he comes to visit at Christmas whether he still remembers that. But it was quite impressive. There were, let's see, something like 12 or 14 elephants with their trainers performing. Elephants were still used in those days. They may still be used in Thailand to do logging. And so they did various different tricks, running logs around, hauling logs, and these great big 4 and 5 foot diameter logs, teak logs, hauling them around as if they were toothpicks. But first they came in and bowed before the king and queen. It was a fascinating show. But the Buddha was so clear and so let go that elephant instantly understood that. The communication was uninhibited, even though the Buddha said nothing. It was like when I was in extreme distress in my very early years of at the Rochester Zen Center, and so distressed that I'd lost about 20 pounds actually. And Roshi came back from one of his off periods and walked into the office and said, "Oh, they said you'd lost a lot of weight." And I burst into tears, asked if I could meet him and talk to him. And he said yes. And so when the appointment came, I knocked on his door. He opened it and gestured to his curious sofa that had been built so that he could sit full lotus on it, and said, "Sit down." So I sat down near him, and all of a sudden, I had no words. I just understood profoundly, deeply, that whatever happened in my life, however the concern I had, which was major, was going to be resolved, was going to be deeply okay. And I finally said to the Roshi, I guess I realize it's going to be okay no matter what happens. And he said, yes. And that was the end of the interview. I didn't need to talk anymore. This is the kind of thing that can happen when a person is sensitive enough to be aware of another person's mind state. And Mitra-roshi was clear, open, genuinely concerned, but not soupy about it. And his clarity of mind, I was able to experience, and knew as a result that things would be okay, because he knew things would be okay. This is the level of clarity we can reach, so that no matter what happens to us, it's going to work out one way or the other. It will work out one way or the other. And how we receive it is going to make all the difference in the world. Just as the elephant opened to the Buddha's mind state and simply experienced that profound peace that the Buddha was experiencing, and no longer had the urge to kill. Just as Mitra-roshi, when he was a high school kid, on a bus encountered Mitra-roshi, who said not a word. and understood something deeply special about this man. And it changed his whole life trajectory. Perhaps some of you may have had experiences similar to that. It is when we are open enough, we can experience these things. And the important thing is that we continue to deepen our practice, all of us, including myself. Deepen our practice, let go, see where we are caught, let go again, see where we are caught, let go again, by being one with it, by experiencing the energy in our body that has accompanied that experience, by letting go of the past. Past is gone. Letting go concerns about the future. The future is not here yet. And it might come forth in a totally different way than one expects. This is the gift of our practice. This awareness, this profound level of awareness beyond simply paying attention, is something that each of us can realize, live through, and become free. So on this fourth day of Sesshin, where we already are getting well cooked, as the expression goes, having already been through another 7-day Sesshin just very recently, take it even deeper. Realize the depth that you can realize in these remaining days. Don't let up. This is a critical time to go even deeper. And of course, we might feel like we've gone as far as we can. We might feel like there are some insurmountable obstacles coming up. And can we just sit down and relax for a minute? Don't walk right into that mountain that looms before you. Embrace it. You will be surprised. If it is fully embraced, it will melt at your feet. I thank you for listening. We'll stop now and recite the 4 vows.